Well, there's no shortage of people in this country who are fed up with the status quo and want to make a stand against generations of systematic racism, climate injustice, LGBTQ discrimination, and more. But without the right resources and connections, even the most passionate voices can go unheard. And that's the idea behind a new partnership between the NAACP and the Groundwork Project, a political organization founded by former Congressman Joe Kennedy. The two groups are launching the Organizing Accelerator. It's a 20-week mentoring, training, and networking fellowship program for up-and-coming grassroots and community organizers, campaigners, social justice advocates, and civil rights leaders. Well, here with me in the studio today is Joe Kennedy and President and CEO of the NAACP, Derrick Johnson. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
So talk to me about this new project. This is a little bit of a different political avenue for you.
It is. It's a little bit different, but I think an opportunity to continue a lot of the work that I and other members of my family have done for a long time, and thrilled and honored to be able to do this with President Johnson and the NAACP. And this really came about from a conversation that we had together as the organization I started, Groundwork Project, was getting up and running in Mississippi in one of our first phone calls, where President Johnson said that there's an enormous amount of talent in places that often is overlooked by the regular traditional political infrastructure. You can't say there isn't talent throughout the South, or throughout the Plains, particularly in the South was the birthplace and the driving force behind the civil rights movement. It's here. The system just doesn't see it, doesn't nurture it, doesn't hone it, doesn't take advantage of it, and doesn't mentor it. And so we asked if we could work together to try to find a way to do that, and thrilled that a year or so later, we're giving it a shot.
Yeah, so talk to me about the NAACP's role in all of this and why, you had that conversation with Mr. Kennedy.
Well, no, I reside in Jackson, Mississippi, and many of the veterans of the civil rights movement were mentors of mine. I grew up in Detroit, but I went to Tougaloo College. And they exposed to me what was possible. I had no concept around civil rights, social justice, and that I actually could build a career out of helping people. And so in that process, we have an existing program in Mississippi, myself and Chairman Thompson, who was the chair of the Homeland Security Commission, we created. It's now in the 11th year. And the goal there is, how do we give young people exposure of what's possible, how they can add their talents and their time to help the very communities they come from. And so when Joe and I started talking, I said, what if we did this nationally? How can we expose individuals to opportunities that they, in many cases, don't even know that's possible? And that's where we landed here. In order for us to make democracy work for all, individuals must understand their agency, how their talents can be applied, and the true nature of how things happen. It happened from lived experience, connected with exposure, connected to networks, and people understanding the opportunity.
So we know that the Groundwork Project is in Alabama, Mississippi, West Virginia, Oklahoma, and of course Massachusetts. Are those states intentional? I think we understand the Massachusetts connection, right? But the other places, is that intentional to be in those places first?
Absolutely. So look, I spent nearly a decade in Congress and campaigned for candidates at almost every level of office all across the country. The amount of times, though, that I was asked to go campaign for a candidate at any level, in the Deep South, in the Plains, or in Appalachia, it was very infrequent. I was one of the only members of Congress to go campaign for somebody in West Virginia, where far too many of us just wrote it off, said, you can't win there, right? And what you do when you realize that is, by writing communities off, writing people off, even if you're trying to say, hey, we have to prioritize effort and talent and resources, what you're really saying is, we can't reach you. Your voices, we say they count, but they don't count as much if you actually are intentional about making sure that they're heard. And you can't, democracy is not just a given. You have to work at it. You have to exercise it. You have to invest in it. And when we write off parts of the country, wide swaths and sections of the country, that has huge implications for the health of our democracy. It means when you have to run for the presidency, there's swaths of the country that you actually don't have the infrastructure set up to be competitive in. It means that we can have unified control, Democratic Party can have unified control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and still lose Roe versus Wade off of a Supreme Court case coming out of Mississippi, can still see voting rights threatened out of Alabama, can still see our ability to regulate climate change threatened out of now well-known major question doctrine out of where? West Virginia. These places we often don't think of as battleground states. They are at the pointy end of the spear for a battleground on some of the biggest, most consequential fights in our country, and yet still are far too often neglected by forces there that are supposed to be defending and protecting all of us.
President Johnson, what do you see as the barriers to access? These folks who are grassroots organizers, who are there trying to get people together. You mentioned this a little bit before, but what are the barriers here to the connection to the traditional, I guess, political machine, if you will, for these folks to get involved, to get on the ballot, to get their voices heard, to be the driving force of legislation?
If you think about our political landscape, we have dwindled the conversation to two political parties who actually quarantine their efforts in regions of the state. And so for African Americans, if you live in the Deep South, you're quarantined with the political party who don't care about your interests, who work against your survival, and in many ways seek to diminish your voice. And so our goal is, how do we expand the landscape so people can be heard and their voices can be felt through public policy? The fact that Mississippi created public policy that ended up in the Supreme Court, which has now overturned Roe v. Wade, is a direct example of a whole swath of a community whose voice have been left out. Just in 2015, there was an effort to adopt in the state personhood, and it was because African Americans defeated that ballot referendum that we stopped it, but yet the public policy, because the majority party in that state was able to maneuver it and get it in front of a Supreme Court. We must, as a nation, get out of tribalism, recognize that public policy is paramount to people's voice, and that political parties are vehicles for public policies. And as long as we have parties in the South that won't recognize African Americans, in West Virginia won't recognize poor people, we're going to have a lopsided reality that sometime one party wins, the next time another party wins, but whole communities are being left out all the time.
Yeah, one of the data points on the website for Groundwork is in 2018, people of color made up 20% of eligible voters, but only cast around 10% of all the ballots. And that power gap was nearly 50%. Is the best approach then to address that?
So,
you know, the fact that we're empowering these civil rights leaders, these activists, these grassroots organizers.
it's a critical step to doing so. And we've talked about parts of the Deep South. We mentioned Appalachia and the Plains. Democracy is earned, and democracy has to be exercised, and that's the true no matter where, including in Massachusetts. And we see some of those similar inequities even in this state. As progressive and as proud as some of us might be of that, you still see voter turnout differences within Greater Boston and other parts of the state. You still see a concentration of resources in Greater Boston versus other parts of the state. The South Coast, Springfield, Worcester, Pioneer Valley, and other places. This has to be something that we all are committed to, and that only happens when you have people going out there, knocking on the door, checking in on a neighbor, asking them what they're confronted with, what are issues that they struggling with in their community, and how can we help? And that can be done, needs to be done, across the community, across our country, year-round. It's, from my perspective, a basic responsibility of citizenship, and this is what we're trying to get back to.
And this, go
What's
ahead.
key with the voter turnout, the example you look at, in this nation, if 60% of the total voting age population vote, we say it's a high turnout. That should be an embarrassment. When in Canada, you're talking about 92% of voters participate. In Germany, about 93%. In Australia, with cumulative voting, you're talking about 96%. We have to open up access to the voting box so we can have a true representative democracy. One of the areas of the parts of the country that seek to shut down access to voting is the southern landscape, the former Confederate states, out of the fear of African American and now the emerging Latino community actively participating, and they are citizens. If we do that, we open up opportunity across the country with access around governance and ensuring that governance is inclusive of all communities. That's what this really is about. How do you get those individuals in targeted states, similar to what Stacey Abrams did in Georgia, opening up democracy so all the voices can be heard?
And we know this fellowship program, this latest cohort here, is working to do just that. So talk a little bit about, one, I want to know the process in selecting these folks, because we know access is an issue, right? And not everyone knows somebody who knows that this is available as a resource. So talk to me about that, and then what we hope to get from this cohort of fellowship.
So we put an application process out. it was actually a tight timeline given the opportunities that we have to try to bring them to our partners here at Harvard and then in Washington with the Biden Institute and then down in Jackson at Tougaloo College. But in just a couple of weeks, we had over 110 applicants. We selected 16. The application pool came in from 26 states, age range from 18 to over 60 years old. The applicants we selected are predominantly between the ages of 20 and 40. They're from 11 states, from West Virginia and Alabama and Mississippi and Nebraska and New York, Oklahoma, across the spectrum. And what we hope to do is, one, allow these extraordinary leaders the opportunity to recognize their own talent, be in community with others and enable them to lift each other up. Provide them opportunities to learn from some of the most extraordinary academics and practitioners in the country at some of these places. Build camaraderie within them, community within them, and then the opportunity to lift each other up over the years ahead, to be able to go back to their communities over time and start to build the political ecosystem that we are able to see in places like a Boston or a Cambridge or New York and other spots around the country.
Much has been made about the changing political landscape, quotation marks around that. Is work like the Groundwork Project, is the work like the NAACP is doing, and I am going to ask you about the convention coming into town this year, is that part of this change? And do we believe that the next election cycle is going to be much different than the last two?
This is part of this change, but this is also, it shouldn't have to be, right? This is a reality. The fact that people going out there fighting for their right to vote, fighting for their right to be seen and heard and part of a community, recognized as part of a community and organized, and allowing those organizers, folks in these communities that have the credibility and have earned the respect to be able to hone that talent. This goes back to literally the founding aspects of democracy. And so while unfortunately some aspects of this is new and what we're trying to invest in and expand is new, it shouldn't be. And the tragedy, as the president points to, is we see the real ramifications of this lag and the democracy deficit we see, even in parts of our country, and the work that we have to do to build a democracy that is wholly inclusive and fair and representative of all of us.
We're in an inflection point
Yeah.
in this country, right? But we are on the right side of history, and we're going to continue to progress. If you think about Memphis and the police brutality that just took place, the accountability was only because we worked really hard in Memphis to increase voter participation in August for their district attorney's race, to remove a district attorney who had been there 8 years, who refused to accept DNA evidence. She was horrible, but with the new DNA, within a week, those officers were suspended and then fired and brought on charges. That is what representative governance looked like, when people can participate and ensure that the system is accountable. But more importantly, if we continue to go in the way of the past administration, we're going to devolve into tribalism. None of us can afford that. But because we are progressing in the right direction as a result of a good voter turnout in 2020 and then in 2022, we're seeing progress being made. When we get to 2024, it is our hope and our goal to empower more people to add their voices, their talents, their skills, so we can continue to progress away from tribalism and true representative democracy.
Well, speaking of that, Boston has a certain reputation, and we had the announcement that the NAACP will be holding their convention there. And as Tanisha Sullivan, the president of the Boston chapter, said, it is intentional and it is not a mistake that it is here. Talk to me about the work that we hope to get accomplished in Boston a little bit.
First of all, Tanisha Sullivan is one of the most skilled and talented leaders in the association. Boston is important, but Boston is America. Boston is no different than America. I grew up in the city of Detroit, the most segregated metro area in the country during the time I was growing up. I live in Jackson, Mississippi, enough said. So Boston have a unique history like the rest of America. But it's an opportunity for this community to embrace not only the African American community, but the NAACP. Our goal is not just to be in a convention center, but get into the communities to show that the diversity of our communities, plural, is the strength of our nation. And we want to help demonstrate that here in the city. We had decided to come here in 2020, but the pandemic hit.
Right. Right.
and the world went upside down.
Yes, it
so
did.
now we're here, and we hope to come from all across the country, participate in the richness of the Boston community, as we also bring real substantive conversation around equity, inclusion, and opportunity.
And through this program, you know, it runs through, you know, this weekend with the cohort, and you're in town to connect with them. There's going to be lots of exciting things happening.
There's a lot of exciting things happening. So we've got a forum tonight over at the Kennedy School at Harvard. We've got a bunch of programming tomorrow, Saturday. We'll take them on tours of some of the great sites and institutions and history here in Boston as well. And an awful lot of learning and working and collaborating. And one of the things I'm looking forward to as well is the back and forth that this cohort actually is able to provide to the students of Harvard University, right? Undergraduate, graduate as well, in this back and forth and the learning that can take place on both sides and the opportunities that will come from that, right? For folks that haven't ever been here before, just to watch talent interact in a kinetic environment and see the good that will come from it. So
Absolutely.
exciting time.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Kennedy, Derek Johnson, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For more information, head to theorganizingaccelerator.org.